a case that ended with a shocking twist. On the 19th of February in 2008, 9-year-old Shannon Louise Matthews was reported missing by her mother, Karen. Shannon was last seen at 3:10 outside of her school, only half a mile away from her home. By the time Karen called 999, it was 6:48 p.m. in Dewsbury, West Yorkshire, and Shannon still hadn't returned home from school. Within hours of her disappearance, a massive police search began, ultimately involving over 250 officers and 60 detectives. Hundreds of neighbours, friends and family joined Karen Matthews in the search for her daughter. Karen made TV appearances begging the public to help her find Shannon alive. The Sun newspaper even offered a £50,000 reward to anyone who could provide information that helped with the investigation. But after 20 days of endless searching, Shannon was still nowhere to be seen. That was until the 14th of March, 24 days after she was first reported missing. Police had finally located Shannon, and she was alive. For 24 days, she had been hidden in the base of a bed in a flat belonging to a man named Michael Donovan. And Michael Donovan was the uncle of her mum Karen's boyfriend. So it turned out that Shannon's mum Karen was involved in her daughter's kidnapping all along. She had concocted this abduction plan hoping to claim the reward money after her daughter's safe return. Shannon was understandably shaken after this ordeal. She'd spent over 3 weeks restrained inside a bed, regularly being given substances as a means to sedate her. Ultimately, Karen Matthews and Michael Donovan were found guilty of kidnapping and false imprisonment, and obstructing the course of justice. But both have since been released from prison and are living under new identities. Shannon received regular therapy after the incident, later being given a new identity and being placed with a foster family.
Imagine killing your boyfriend so no one else could have him. Trigger warning for graphic content. Ryan Poston from Kentucky, Ohio started dating psychology student Cheyenne Hubers in March 2011. The two met on Facebook, and even though Cheyenne was 19 and he was 28 years old, they became inseparable fast. Cheyenne was known for her aggressive behavior, and it was no surprise to anyone when she became clingy, obsessive, controlling, and abusive towards her boyfriend Ryan. Despite all of this, Ryan continued to date Cheyenne for a while before he got fed up. Ryan had complained about how Cheyenne would show up to his condo unannounced, she would get inside, and when he would tell her to leave, she would refuse to go anywhere. He very much tried breaking up with her a few times, but Cheyenne refused to accept it and just continued to show up and to dress up for him, and somehow she would always end up getting him back. On October 11th, 2012, things took a turn for the worse. Ryan broke up with Cheyenne, and this time Cheyenne knew it was for good. She ended up having a meltdown, and with Ryan asked her to leave, she refused and spent the night. The next morning, before leaving Ryan's condo, Cheyenne logged into his Facebook and discovered that he had a date set up for that night. The date was with this beautiful woman who was Miss Ohio 2012. While Ryan was getting ready for his date, Cheyenne used one of her keys that she had stolen from him and went into his home. Ryan locked himself in the bedroom, but this didn't stop her. She used a hairpin to break in and get inside of his bedroom. This is when it's believed that she confronted Ryan about his date and shot him in the face around 6 times. She then called 911 after she made sure he had passed and said that she had to kill her boyfriend in self-defense. She told the authorities that he got violent and threw her into a bookshelf and dragged her around, but at the actual scene, there was no evidence or proof that he had even touched her. During her interrogation, she laughed and sang. Check this out.
Over the years, I've seen people who have been in shock. I've never had anybody tell me that someone pirouettes when they're in shock, that someone sings when they're in shock, that somebody snaps their fingers and says, "I did it," when they're in shock.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Detectives found proof in her search history that she had planned this whole murder. Cheyenne pled not guilty, but was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 40 years. She appealed this and was still sentenced to life in prison, but with the ability of parole in 17 years. She will be eligible for parole in 2032, which is crazy to me.
Losing control, I get high when I'm feeling my flow. My mind is focused and I'm ready to go, ready to go. Nah, nah, It's like falling from grace. I know I'm blessed cause I found my way. I'm feeling fire and I'm ready to slay. Ready to slay, nah nah. You got me so wild, I'm out of control, I'm out of control.
The kids in this video look like a happy family filming a TikTok. One of the girls is adopted, and what she does to her siblings will make you feel sick. This case has been compared to the movie Orphan. So on the 10th of December 2021, this father from the Philippines, his name is Cruz, he gets the type of phone call no parent ever wants to receive. At exactly 3 p.m, police inform him that 3 intruders have entered his house and taken the lives of his 2 biological children. 18-year-old Gwen, this girl, and 16-year-old Lewis. The pair had been brutally attacked by a baseball bat and hammer. Now, surviving the incident was their 16-year-old daughter named Janice. As you saw from the beginning, Janice was close to her sibling, often seen having fun, dancing, and laughing with them. So it was understandable that she was distraught. When police asked her what happened, she told them that 3 intruders entered the house. She was lucky enough to escape because she ran to her bedroom, but her other 2 siblings were just not fast enough. Now, Janice had only been taken in by this family 5 months earlier. She had formed a close friendship with Gwen and begged her parents to take Janice in. She told her parents that Janice was an orphan who came from a really tough background. And despite the family having limited resources, they agreed. And Janice joined the family. She was welcomed in and all seemed well on the surface. Now, this attack completely devastated the family. As investigators looked into the case, they noticed something very troubling. Nothing in the family home had been stolen, and the weapons used against the 2 victims were actually owned by the family. In fact, the baseball bat had been stored in Janice's room, which means the thieves would have had to have entered the room. Police also found a bag of clothes belonging to Janice at the back of the house. Those clothes were covered in blood, and she had specifically changed before police arrived. It was becoming clear to police what really happened, and Janice was arrested. She ended up confessing. It must be noted that she had the help of 2 other assailants. As they looked into Janice's past, they realized she wasn't even an orphan. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison. So why did Janice do this? She'd been taken in by a warm, loving family after all. Well, the parents of the 2 victims believed Janice wanted to be their only child. She had done this out of jealousy. She wanted to be the only one who got their love and affection. My name's Hubs, and I talk about true crime cases. If you want to hear more content like this, I suggest you follow.
This woman laid on a couch for 12 years until she was basically melted to it. So have you ever heard of Lacey Fletcher? Lacey's parents were Sheila and Clay Fletcher. They moved to Slaughter, Louisiana about 28 years ago. As soon as they moved to Louisiana, Lacey became involved in her school. She was making friends with all the neighbor kids. She liked to go outside and play. She even joined the volleyball team and seemed like the typical teenager. Lacey was described by her peers as highly intelligent but a little bit immature for her age. Lacey really enjoyed things that her peers thought of as childish. But she was still very smart and very outgoing, but not much else is known about Lacey. At the age of 14, Lacey's parents decided to homeschool her, and that's when she just kind of disappeared from the public. Her friends from school and the neighbor kids just stopped seeing her come out as much as she used to. And it kind of seemed like Sheila and Clay were the reason that Lacey was being so isolated. They were the reason that she no longer went out into public. She was able to have a birthday party when she turned 18 years old, and she invited all of her school friends and just friends to come watch Disney movies, but at this point, these kids were 18 years old. They didn't want to sit around and watch Disney movies with her. The last time Lacey was seen in public was by her neighbor in 2007. This neighbor thought that Lacey looked very thin, but he just figured that she was exercising because she was using those weights that you can put around your ankles to walk around. And then Lacey is not ever seen again in public. In 2017, the neighbor did ask about Lacey, figuring that she had either gotten married or moved on, gone to college, or done something else with her life. But Clay told him that Lacey was still there. She was still at home. But the neighbor didn't press further. He didn't question why he didn't see her. He just kind of let things be. Then on January 3rd of 2022 at about 2 a.m, there is a 911 call received from Sheila. Sheila says that her daughter has stopped breathing. When emergency services arrived, they realized that there was something very wrong with the situation. Lacey was laying on the couch and it almost seemed like she had melted to it. She had all kinds of sores that had been opened all the way down to the bone. Her hair was knotted up and there were maggots crawling around in it. And emergency services could tell that Lacey had been laying there for a very, very long time. There were feces and there was urine all over the couch. I'm gonna have to go to part 2. Give me a couple minutes to film it and it'll be up down in the comments.
13-year-old Jamie Kloss was just getting on the school bus in the morning when the roughest looking 21-year-old I have ever seen, Jake Patterson, who was just on his way to work, happened to catch a glimpse of her as she was getting on the bus and made a final decision in his mind that, quote, "This is the girl that I'm going to take." He had tried driving up to the Kloss home a couple times, but there was some commotion, neighbors, whatever, and he got spooked and drove home, but he decided to try one more time. With a stolen license plate and every light disabled on his vehicle, I mean, we're talking right down to that little light that comes on when you pop the trunk, he slowly coasts into the driveway, but it sets the dog off. Dog starts barking, which wakes up Jamie, who tells her parents. As Patterson walks up to the house, he's completely dressed in black. He's got a ski mask on, wielding a shotgun. Jamie's dad is coming over to the front door to see what the commotion is, and Patterson can just kind of see his silhouette through the window and fires a fatal shot right through the window at the dad. As he's shooting his way through the front door, Jamie's mom is actually able to quickly call 911 and barricade herself and Jamie inside the bathroom, but Patterson quickly is able to just smash his way in there, and he fires another fatal shot at Jamie's mom. This girl had to witness both of her parents go in just the most brutal way possible. This all went down in about a 4-minute window, and as the police are speeding over to the house, they actually pass Patterson, who is able to get away with Jamie locked in the trunk. Cops just had the crime scene to go on, and everything just goes quiet for a little while. No leads, no sign of Jamie, zip. But Jamie was still alive. For 3 months, Jamie was forced to live under Patterson's twin bed, and he tried to develop this companionship-like relationship with her. Like, they apparently played cards and watched TV, and he basically just instilled it in her that if she ever tried to make a break for it, it'd be bad. He had the bed lined with tote boxes and weights, but that was it. One day, Jake tells Jamie, "Hey, I'm gonna be gone for a couple hours. You know the drill." And, you know, everything had gone according to plan up to this point.
911. Hi. I have a young lady at my house right now, and she says her name is Jamie Kloss. Who's going to come back? Jake Thomas Patterson.
When Jake came home after that couple hours, Jamie was gone. Now at this point, Patterson is just out of his mind, driving around frantically, just trying to track Jamie down, but the cops tracked him down, and the first thing he said was, "I know what this is about. I did it."
This is what happened to 20-year-old Vanessa Guillen and how she was found murdered inside the military base of Fort Hood, Texas. Vanessa was born on September 30th, 1999 in Houston, Texas to her parents Rogelio and Gloria Guillen, who are originally from Mexico. Growing up, Vanessa told her mom that she either wanted to become an astronaut and go to the moon, or she wanted to enlist in the military. Gloria was not a fan of this. She actually told Vanessa that she would rather her go to the moon than to ever enroll in the military. However, when Vanessa turned 18 years old, she called her mom and said, "Do you remember what I was going to do when I turned 18? Well, I did it. I enrolled in the military." Of course, this was shocking news to the family, but they wanted to be supportive, and when they found out that Vanessa was going to be stationed in Fort Hood, Texas, which was about 3 hours away from Houston, they felt relieved knowing that she was only going to be 3 hours away. Now, while at Fort Hood, she was trained as a 91F small arms and artillery repairer, so kind of like a mechanic. And at first, things seemed to be going well. During this time, Vanessa was actually engaged to a man named Juan Cruz, and they had planned their wedding to be in December of that year. Vanessa was so excited about the wedding. She was so happy to be in the military, but over time, the family started to notice that Vanessa was acting different. She wasn't sleeping, she was losing weight, and something just seemed off. Vanessa told her family that the reason she was so stressed out was because she was being sexually harassed by a sergeant at the base. As soon as Gloria heard this, she told her daughter to immediately report this man, but Vanessa said no. That other girls had already reported him and nothing was done about it. So she figured if she reported him, no one would believe her. She was also scared that if she came forward, there would be some type of retaliation against her. Maybe she would get kicked kicked off the base or something worse would happen. On April 22nd, 2020, Vanessa was actually supposed to have the day off, but that day she received a message from work asking her to come in. She only had a couple of things to do that day, so she thought she was just going to have like a half day, so she made plans with her friend Tay to go hiking later on. One of the tasks she had that day was to go to the arms room and get a serial number for one of the weapons. Vanessa made her way to the arms room and she texted the armor specialist, Aaron Robinson, letting him know that she was on her way. Around 10:23 in the morning, Vanessa sent a text message to one of her co-workers with the serial number of the weapon. And at around 11:13 a.m., Aaron Robinson closed the arms room. Now the morning continued and Vanessa was supposed to meet up with her friend Tay to go hiking, but she never showed up. Tay started calling Vanessa, sending her text messages, but she didn't answer. Meanwhile, Vanessa's family back in Houston was just as concerned. She hadn't responded to anybody. She hadn't responded to her fiance, to her sisters, to her mom, no one. Vanessa's sisters, Myra and Lupe, decided to call the base and ask for Vanessa. However, that's when the base told them that no one had seen or spoken to Vanessa since lunchtime. The family knew something was wrong, so that's when Myra, one of Vanessa's sisters, and her fiance Juan decided to get in the car and drive to Fort Hood. Meanwhile, back at the base, Vanessa's friend Tay is still looking for her. He went to Vanessa's apartment, but she wasn't there. However, her car was in the parking lot, so where was Vanessa? Okay, more in part 2.
Do you guys remember the Randonautica app and how it led a group of teenagers using it to a suitcase of dismembered human remains? On June 19th, 2020, a group of teenagers were using Randonautica, which prompted them to explore a West Seattle beach called Duwamish Head. One of the teens was recording a TikTok video when they stumbled upon a large suitcase that had washed ashore. After opening it with sticks, they found that inside of the suitcase was a garbage bag that had a horrible smell, so they called the police. When police searched the area, they also found a smaller duffel bag, and both bags contained dismembered human remains. After testing, the King County Medical Examiner found that the remains belonged to 35-year-old Jessica Lewis and 27-year-old Austin Winter, a couple who had been dating for 8 years. Authorities concluded that the couple had been beaten before death, and after, Jessica was shot multiple times while Austin was fatally shot once. They were then dismembered, and police believe this happened roughly 10 days earlier on June 9th. During the investigation, authorities found that the couple had been renting a room in a Burien house from 62-year-old Michael Lee Dudley, who had a long history of sexual assault and violent animal cruelty. On the night of the murders, neighbors actually called 911 after hearing gunfire and screaming coming from the home, but when the Burien police responded, nobody answered the door, so they just left. A witness came forward and said that she actually moved into Michael's home on the night of the murders and that Michael actually helped move her things in. But she said that his glasses were broken and that he had scratches all over him. She also said that later that night, she opened the upstairs bedroom door, which is where she was going to be staying, and saw a pile of clothing on the floor with a hand sticking out of it. Michael then reportedly told her that he needed to clean up a mess first and asked if he could take her somewhere else for the night, in which she agreed. But when they were leaving, she saw Michael laying out plastic tarp all over the basement floor. And when she asked him about it, he said, quote, "Let's just put it this way, his gun misfired and mine didn't," end quote. After searching Michael's home and finding bullet holes, blood, and other incriminating evidence, he was arrested. Although he initially denied any involvement in the murders, authorities believe that his motive was over unpaid rent. Michael was charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, and I believe sometime this month he will officially be sentenced.